all right,
ones.
good.
I'm just,
All right, good, I won't bring it up again.
no, it's fantastic that these Olympics, I mentioned the competitor with that.
Okay, I just don't wanna forget it.
Don't worry, we won't forget it.
Okay, all ready to go, sir?
Right, that's where I got it.
Yeah.
How are you gonna forget?
Easy.
I'd like to call to order the, meeting of the Summers Board of Selectmen, February 3rd, 2022. And, I'd like to first have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Liberty and justice for all.
So roll call this evening, I have, Selectman Bill Meyer on my right, Selectman Bob Schmidt on my left. And here we have, Chief Financial Officer Mike Marinaccio, Assistant Financial Officer Brian Wissinger. We have, Todd Rowland, our, Public Works Director. We have Maureen Purcell, our, Recreational and Leisure Services Director. We have Kim LaFleur, I'm not gonna mention anybody else.
That's all right. We got a lot going on.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is public comment. So I'm not sure whether we have any public here that wants to speak tonight yet. You can speak later if you'd like. Okay. Great, we have no public comment. We have no executive session. Presentations by first selectman. So, just before we start with U.S. Hauling, I'd just like to mention we have a resignation of Jillian Connors, who is our senior center supervisor, and she gave us notice a few days ago, and her last day of work will be a week from tomorrow, correct? Is that right?
It's February 11th on here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Week from tomorrow. Right, okay, thank you. All right, so, next, as, part of my comments, the town had been asked questions by many of our residents about the, expenses, that were being incurred for curbside pickup, and of course, the town's budget, in relation to the public works budget, mentions expenses that relate to transfer station recycling, and, I thought it would be very beneficial to hear from USA Hauling, who the town has been working with for how many years?
A lot.
Yeah. Many years. We've had a great experience with them, and having a little bit of background in my own background with regards to waste management, I thought it would be very beneficial to hear from USA Hauling. We're gonna get a presentation by, their Director of Operations, Eric Frederickson, and to hear about charges, expenses, foreseeable challenges, what this business is all about and why things are the way they are, and, what we might expect coming down the road.
Very good. You can keep going if you want.
No, that's just introducing you.
You got a grasp on this.
You're the
I
man.
think, so, all
So
right.
maybe get the microphone,
Is it,
Well, this is for the,
Okay.
website, the YouTube account, so if you want to. Oh, we've had problems with
You're
it. Yeah.
okay.
Thank you, Eric.
Can you
hear me? All right.
why don't I just do that? You can hold it.
Oh.
Is that okay?
No.
No?
I got a lot of
All right,
coming
until
into it here. All right, we'll make it
We
work.
can hear you, yeah, we can.
You can hear me.
This
I'll
is
talk
for-
louder. You won't need that one. All right. I'll talk louder. So, look at that. All right, you got my screen here. Let me get this playing here for you. Thank you for the intro, Tim, and thank you, Town of Summers here for inviting myself, I guess, the representative of the company. Just, I guess, to give you a quick rundown, Eric Frederickson, as I was introduced there, I'm Director of Operations for USA Hauling. I've been with the USA family for 19 years now, just about. I've been in the waste industry since high school, so it puts me around 28 years doing this. And happy to be here to answer questions, and I'll run through what I have for information, and certainly expect there'll be some questions, so we'll,
Great.
feel free to stop me, I guess, if that's whatever the appropriate way to handle this is, but, I wanted first just to kind of level set what we do here in Summers. I think everyone knows, but sort of set the foundation here, so, I think Todd's pointed out to everyone, it's a little bit of a unique design here in Summers, where we provide the curbside collection for waste and recycling as a subscription-based service for the residents that choose to use that service with us. We provide services at the transfer station under an agreement with the town, which includes hauling the containers and the disposal and the transportation and disposal and the processing of the recyclables, and then the other piece of that is the disposal and the processing of the material that's collected curbside. So, we've been, now here's your timeline, Tim. We've been servicing residents of Summers here for almost 50 years.
Wow.
We do so with automated collection. I just make that point, I guess, because it is, while it's become more of the norm, it's something that many years ago we had, we moved in that direction, which means you're not seeing a truck rumbling down the street with a couple of people hanging off the back of it, slinging bags into the open hopper. So it's done with an automated truck, a single driver, and makes for more efficient, safer, and quite frankly has lent to, I think, some services over the last couple of years that we may not have been able to provide otherwise. Drivers are isolated, insulated from the outside world, more or less, on a day-to-day basis, which has certainly been a benefit to us here over the way the last couple of years have gone. So, we dispatch the trucks locally here. We do maintenance, and our customer service is all done locally from our facilities in East Windsor. We service the town with compressed natural gas fueled trucks, which many residents may not be aware of. It's an investment that we made, oh boy, going on 10 plus years ago now. And we focus on keeping our fleet as new as we can keep it. And right now we're about 3.5 years average age of our fleet. So I wanna make you jealous, Todd. We work hard in maintenance, and we do a lot in the way of resale to keep that program going. But we provide and maintain the carts that the residents use for the curbside collection. So similarly, and I kind of bring this up because Summers is a special place to USA, and the company started as Summers Sanitation, going back to that almost 50-year mark here. So this is where our roots really are, and not only Summers, but any of the towns that we service, where we're providing, especially where we're providing residential collection, which is such a personal thing for people. We do a lot to invest in those communities and become part of those communities, and so just some notes on some of the things that we do here in town. So to get into some specifics on the services, I mentioned the transfer station is part of the current agreement that we're operating. We provide those services either the same day or the next day, depending on what the need is. So falls in the category of responsive there for us, and we've held our rates there up until the most recent agreement here. For 9 years, we provided those services to the transfer station without changing our rates.
Now this is the rates.
The roll-off containers.
Is this the RFP rates?
These are the rates until the past agreement we're now into this year. The 9 years preceding July 1st of 21, we were held harmless for that time.
Okay.
Flat rate.
For on the waste disposal and the recycling side of things, which has been kind of I guess, from an industry standpoint, has been the hot topic in recent years here. You know, what we offer the town is we've gone out to market. We have reserve capacity that we've secured to make sure that there's a place for summer's trash and recyclables. Permanent facilities, we utilize our own network of transfer stations, which allows us to control, to the extent of our permit, the hours of operation, and provides us with some redundancy in the case there was an issue at one facility. We have other facilities where we can accept the material at. So, needless to say, trash doesn't pile up at the street, which is probably the ultimate concern, I think, of anybody, certainly of any select board. On the recycling side of things, we run single stream sorting plants where we use mechanical and optical sorting systems to process that material. Quick averages here for quick math for the agreements that have been put in place in prior years for the waste and the waste disposal and the recyclable processing. We've saved the residents of Summers, the budget, if you will, about $150,000 over the last 4 years with the disposal deals that the town put together, compared to what a market would have provided for. So,
This is 150?
150,000 in total for the 4 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Couple things. I guess these are some more. You know, you put your cart out at the curb and your trash, your recycling goes away, and you're happy, and we're happy. But there's a lot more involved to it, and some of the investments that we've made to support that. Just to highlight here, as I mentioned, compressed natural gas vehicles, which you may or may not hear that truck coming down the street because they're significantly quieter than diesel and cleaner, and they provide us with a more reliable domestic source of fuel. So fortunately, that hasn't been. We haven't had fuel cut at the border, but
Price of natural gas has gone up pretty high though, right?
It trends in line with diesel.
Right now, yeah.
It trends in line with diesel, yeah. We have solar installations. This is a feel-good thing, I guess, but you know, we install solar in a lot of our buildings, and specifically the facility where we fuel the trucks that service Summers. We have a solar installation that powers the natural gas compressors there, so we kind of like to think that's a neat combination of things, and to our knowledge is the only one in the country that we have a solar powered compressed natural gas station. So thanks, Kim.
Yeah.
And the single stream processing, which I mentioned, we have facilities where we do process the recyclables. Currently we have a facility, an addition to a facility under construction in Berlin, that's going to be the latest and greatest that New England has seen for processing recyclables. So it's about doubles the processing capability and produces cleaner, more marketable materials, which helps to continue to fuel those systems. So, all right. So the costs, that's been talked about. That's been highlighted a couple times here. So, you know, interestingly enough, I guess our industry is I guess I'll say maybe disproportionately affected by what are some of the more significant cost drivers. So you look at the CPI basket of goods, and the things that get hit the hardest are the things that are most important to how we run our operation. That's what I mean by that. The cost of trucks, the cost of container and equipment, fuel, insurance, labor. I'm going to go into these in a little more detail here, but this is my kind of my summary of the areas to focus on. Skipping ahead. All that said, and as I mentioned earlier here, the worst case scenario is the trash piles up at the street, and believe it or not, that's a reality. And so over the last couple of years, this is a quick snapshot of every week. in one of the waste news blurbs that I get, the email blasts, whatever it is, there's another story about another program in some other part of the country that's been suspended or been canceled or delays in service just north of us in East Longmeadow. If anyone's on their news source or face, there every week part of that town doesn't get picked up because they're dealing with labor issues and truck issues and everything else. So a lot of what we do is to try to make sure that we don't find ourselves in that situation. And that's why we try to have the foresight to plan around this and to look at some of the costs and things that I'm gonna run through here. So here's what we've seen for some changes here. And I went back about 3 years as I was figuring this out. Our truck cost to purchase an automated truck, that cost is 39% more than it was 3 years ago for us. Container costs, which the obviously mostly driven by steel and labor, is 81% higher than it was 3 years ago. The cost for carts, the resin, and the manufacturing of those carts, we've seen those go up 19% over the last 3 years here. Freight costs, I say 41% because I know what I pay for a load of carts to get shipped. In certain industries, that's 100% more than it was a few years ago.
When you say freight cost, what does that mean?
The cost of transportation.
Well, I
Moving
get that, but what are you transporting? Are you transporting the trash, or are you
Carts.
transporting?
trash is part of it. Specifically here, I'm talking about just the cost to get the carts from the manufacturer to here so that we can get them distributed.
Okay, so you're talking about the tipper carts.
The tipper carts, parts, I mean, all that all plays at parts for the trucks and the cost simply to transport a truck. When we buy a truck, it has to go to a body outfitter and then it has to go to a dealer and then it comes to us. There's transportation costs in making all that happen too, so.
So that's not included though in the container cost, the increase in the freight for the container.
Two different things.
Is not included in the 81% increase.
The 81% is I'll clarify it. The 81% is the steel containers that we have at the transfer we have around town. Town owns the transfer station. Dumpsters, exactly. It's indicative of what our industry is experiencing, yeah. The cost specific to residential service, if you will, the cart costs at 19%, the freight costs at the 41%, that's all cart-related equipment. Trucks at 39%, curbside service-related costs. And then and then fuel costs, whether you're talking diesel or CNG, over the last 3 years is about 19% is what we're seeing. So the other side of it, we got to get somebody to drive these trucks, and we like to have the same people drive them every single day for many years at a time. And Summers has benefited from that, I think, with Stanley and Ted, who provide service around town here. Our insurance costs over 3 years, we've seen a 74% increase in insurance costs. Labor has been an 18% increase.
Over what time period?
Three.
3
years.
So that's 3 years.
This is all 3 years.
This is all 3 years.
All
It just says in recent years, I wanna make sure.
He said that.
Yeah.
I'm doing, yeah,
Last 3
no,
years.
the analysis is for
3 years.
For 3 years, yeah.
That's collective, that includes workers' comp, all that, or?
Insurance includes everything,
What'd you
yeah.
say about labor?
Labor's about 18%, and I can provide this stuff to you guys, afterwards, but, I think most significantly, we saw back in March of this past year, as we were starting to hear rumblings of driver turnover and why were drivers potentially leaving, and it was because they could go work for Amazon for $2 more an hour than what we're paying them as a CDL driver. A non-CDL individual could go work for Amazon for that kind of a price. You can go, there are coffee places paying $20 an hour now for the same. So we had to take a hard look at that. We went through a very lengthy analysis to look at our labor rates and what we were hiring drivers for. We had to bump up what we were hiring people for to get good qualified people in the door. And at the same time, you can't hire somebody for more and pay somebody more now than the guy you just hired 6 months or a year ago. Then you're going to lose him too. So we took to take a look at all that. It was just this past year was a 13% hit on labor across the board. So that 18 is an average number of what we've experienced over those 3 years, but the most significant increase was in this most recent year here for us. No, non-union. So, excuse me. So that's, that's, I guess, the highlights of what we've experienced on the cost side of things. The other side of this and more the town budget side of it is tied to the waste disposal, the recycling, and the transfer station costs, which went up, and went up significantly, and I understand that. What we're seeing with disposal in the region here, and the town right now at $104 a ton enjoys a rate less than what the market is still. So we were able to do that by going out to market, finding the best deal we could find, and taking into account the history and whatever else we could factor to try to keep things going here. The issues around that, what we're seeing with waste disposal in the region is really capacity, a function of capacity. Capacity in the region continues to contract, mostly driven. I pick up the paper once every couple of weeks, and there's an article, some other article about mirroring the cost of trash in the region here. The waste energy plant is still scheduled to go offline in the next year or so here, if not sooner. The Chicopee landfill just north of us closed. We don't deliver material there, but it affects the region. That's closed in years prior to this here. The waste energy plant in Springfield filed bankruptcy last summer. They're still operating at this point, but it's indicative of kind of what's going on with some of these plants that were built 20, 30 years ago. They struggle to maintain their operation. We still utilize that capacity. It just means we gotta travel farther to get to it. So that's the other side of the equation, is the transportation costs, and where you used to be able to maybe deliver material right to Hartford or right up to Springfield. If they don't have capacity, you're going to Millbury or Lisbon or Bridgeport, sitting in lines. That's all part of the transportation related costs that are being driven up. The other side of it too, on the commodity side, on the recyclable side, the commodity markets go up and down, and they're better than they were. That was a hot topic a few years ago. They're better than they were. They're not nearly close to where they used to be historically, but they're better than they were. But what's changed there is the same costs that I went through earlier on there with the labor costs, the insurance costs. There's a processing cost to get the stuff through the system, to make the system work, to have operators there to load the system, to have quality control people there to make sure that the material is acceptable for commodity, saleable as a saleable commodity, and so those costs have all gone up. That factors into the calculation of disposal. So that's kind of the high level view of what's going on. I guess at the end of the day, it's my summary slide here, if you will. But at the end of the day, we value service. I think above all else, I think we believe the residents, the Summers, value that service. I'm happy to be here talking with you folks. It's not the first thing I would want. This is not the first presentation I would want to have to be doing. And no business that has a tie like we do to Summers wants to have to go through any of this sort of an iteration to explain what's going on. These are the realities of what we're facing. We want to be able to continue to provide the service. We don't want to be a headline in the newspaper about not being able to get the trash picked up at the curb. We want to do it safely. We want to be a good partner in the community, and that's where we're at right now. So that's me. That's my email for anybody listening at home. I'm available for questions. Certainly available for questions now for you guys. And
I know what, you go ahead.
Are we allowed to speak?
Oh, certainly.
I
Go ahead.
as a citizen of Summers?
You need a microphone for
I
that.
agree with everything you're saying, and don't deny any of it.
Just a minute, there you go.
I'm an old lady, I can't hear, I can't talk. No, I moved in 20 years ago with my husband, and the first thing we did from coming from the city was to want our garbage picked up. When I heard about going to a dump, that was a word that didn't sound too nice to me. However, Summers residents and Summers people seem to all flock to the dump. That might be one of your problems. You need more customers. And the way probably to get more customers is to lower your price a little bit. The last increase we got, that's why I'm here, was a shocker to me. I've been with you people 20 years, started off at $145 once a year. For 7 years I had no increases. Then it went up to, I've got my paperwork here, it went up to maybe 150. I think I've had 3 raises in 20 years, nothing amounting over $30. Not consecutive years either. Skip in between. Now this past year is my 21st year, I think. My raise went from $336 to almost $400, a $60 increase. $60 is an awful lot of money. However, I'm toying with the idea, do I want to put my garbage in the back of my little Volkswagen buggy that I have and go walking down to the dump? I push that barrel lately. That's another thing. Maybe if you cut back on the size of the barrels for some of the people and charged a little less. But I think the bottom line really is, I understand from when I talk to people, you're losing customers. And that's where your money is, to keep the customers going. I've talked to 2 ladies at your office, and I got the nicest treatment from them. Very polite, very nice, very understanding. It's a wonderful company, but there's something going on that isn't right. I know garbage is a big problem, and it probably always will be until we invent something. But I just sat here, I haven't paid my bill yet. I asked if I could pay it in installments. They said, of course you can, which I didn't know that either. But I don't know, we don't want to lose you, but it doesn't seem like your business is growing. And to try to charge the people that you have left more money, I don't think that's the answer to it. I really, really don't. Like, I can go 3 to 4 weeks without pushing my barrel up to the curb, because I'm one person all alone. So maybe there's answers within that kind of thing. I know you don't want to become very individualized, that I want 1 basket and you want 3 of them, you know. But I just think that there's something missing. How does a person like your company get into a town like Summers? What prompts you to come here, and who accepts you to come in here? You know, you have to sell yourself when you first came.
It was before my time.
Yeah.
So I can't speak to that. I probably was. I may not have even been in diapers yet, but.
Well, I know it's a hard job, but the men are lovely. I had one incident happen to me. I overslept one morning, my garbage was not put out. I heard the truck go. I quickly called your company. The answer with the girl on the other end of the phone was, hold on 1 minute. In 1 minute she came back to the phone and she said to me, I caught him. He's turning around and coming back.
Very nice.
So I mean, you're a good company.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I just, you know, I'm an older lady, how long am I gonna be doing garbage? I don't know. But I just think there's something going on that's not connected. You know how many customers you have. You know how many towns you have. Are you losing business? Are you gaining business? That's something that you've got to look into.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Well, hate to break the news to her, but 15 minutes it takes me to drive back and forth.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you brought the rates, because I was actually I have my bill somewhere on my phone. I was trying to find it. I paid the same rate. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we all pay the same rate.
The same rate.
For
Well, I
curbside
guess my
pickup.
question would be.
I'm not a customer, because I love going to the dump. I meet people there I haven't seen, and when I hear the costs keep rising and rising, that's another reason fly, and I'm just thinking, maybe you'll lose customers if you keep getting those rates up like that, and I understand you're a business, but at the same time, there's only so many increases, especially the older people.
No, understood, and it's, we look at that very hard. It's not, these are not conversations, we understand the kind of effect that has, and if it wasn't for all the factors that we've had to go through over the last few years, I think we probably wouldn't have, the conversation would have been, I had only two increases over the 20 years, right? The last few years have been challenging, to say the least, so that's a function of why we're sitting here tonight, but.
Well, like I said, there's something wrong. There's something that's not gelling. You know, it's not, being successful. I don't know how many towns you have, I don't know how many people you service, but there's something, I know everything is going up, and it's gonna go up more and more. But this was a shocker to me, $60, it really was. And I said, you've been given, increases quicker the last couple of years, but nothing over, I think, $25.
Yeah, and that is and the reality over the last few years is kind of what I highlighted. You know, you brought up the payment, yeah. So we have made some of those changes recently, where the semi-annual or the annual, kind of that historic billing was sort of just part of the program. We've changed that to offer different payment, more budget friendly, I guess you'd maybe say, payment structure to things. The costs are a problem, understood. We've tried to do some things like that to make it a little more reasonable.
The funniest thing that happened to me, after I had the first 7 years, maybe even before that, it was a big amount to me, because we always paid it in our taxes in the other town I lived in. Probably paid more than what we're charging us, but I said to my husband, now this is getting to be a big bill, and he said, call him up and ask for a senior discount. So I picked up the phone and I asked for senior discount.
Good for you. No, good for you. I would have too.
And the girl on the other end said, sure, I think she said take 5%. So any senior loves something like that. That's terrific. So she said, just put it on your invoice, subtract it from the original price, and send that kind of a check in. So I did it. It worked. The next year I called first, and I said to her, do I get my senior discount again? And she said, what was it? I said 5%, do it again. So I've done it, up until last year I've done it, all right? My girlfriend called, who has your service, and she was furious a couple years ago. And I said, call them, tell them that I get a senior discount, and you get a senior discount. So she called. They said, nobody here gets a senior discount.
Uh-oh.
And me with my Italian temper, I said, now watch this one. I said, you tell them my name. Let them look it up, and they'll see it written on every invoice I send back. She called, well, I'm off the list now, I'm not getting a senior discount, I know. They wouldn't give it to her. So these are little things. Seniors are different types of people. They are. They're not like you, and not like my kids anymore. They're so different than I am. But you gotta listen to us sometimes. Give a senior discount. See what happens. You know, it might work. I don't know.
Are there any other questions?
Eric, I had a couple of questions for you. So number one, thanks for coming in. I mean, I would echo what I've heard. I mean, I know as recently as 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, they missed my street. I called them up. I mean, they were there within an hour and picked it up. You know, I've learned you just gotta call early, like before noon or 1, otherwise they'll get you the next day. But excellent service, great family-based business, you know, we're glad to have them. I guess what I wanna focus on though with my question is, yes, number one, the increase in the residential rates, and I agree. I mean, honestly, I was shocked. I mean, when I saw my bill this year, when I opened it up, and I know it came on the heels of 2 or 3 increases from prior years. But, you know, I also look at our town budget, and, you know, I look in 2021, the total amount we paid for waste disposal was $400,000. Then it went up to 500, now my eyes aren't good anymore, 509,000, and now it's up to 634,000. So I mean, when I look at all the costs here and things, I mean, most all of the costs you listed are absorbed by the town. And that's, you know, by statute, well, the tipping fees, you know, and the hauling fees.
Yeah, but none of the costs I listed were tipping fee related.
Well, a lot, but I mean, the cost and, you know, I mean, everything we heard was like disposal. You know, the cost, you know, you're having trouble bringing it places, you're having, you know, a lot of the trucking costs and things, out of summers, all those costs are paid for by the budget. I mean, I heard containers,
Yeah.
I heard an 18% increase in labor,
Insurance, labor,
18% in
benefits.
fuel, and then, I mean,
Trucks.
insurance is obviously split.
trucks, carts. That
Well,
was,
but
the
I mean,
bulk of what I shared was related to the curbside collection.
Well, but I
increase.
guess my point is that, like, for instance, trucks, I mean, the trucks also haul it off-site, right? I mean, the trucks kind of do both functions. So if you drive around
No.
Summers all day, right,
The
that
trucks
truck
don't
does,
it goes to a transfer station.
okay, but I mean, that's cost the town pays, right?
No.
What does the town pay?
The town is paying disposal,
The weight.
the
of what's
weight
picked up.
per ton, disposal, and the town is paying for the transfer station hauling purely out of Egypt Road containers to our transfer station.
But we also pay for the cost of disposing the waste that's picked up curbside.
Yes.
The disposal, the per
The
ton
tonnage.
disposal.
So I
right.
guess my question is, where does the tonnage originate from? Is it from the point, or is it from where you bring it? So where, I mean, the town's paying for the tonnage,
Right, that's in the
In
cart,
the
the
truck.
curbside cart, what you put in the
so
cart.
where
the
does
town
that
pays.
start? I mean, when you price that, I'm saying, like, from what point to what point are you hauling? The tonnage that we're paying for curbside.
It doesn't really, it starts with the weight. It doesn't,
But I'm
It-
saying, where, I mean, I feel like we're double paying in some ways, you know what I'm saying? We're talking about disposal.
okay, so I understand, I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So the cost that the town pays, once the material hits our transfer station floor,
Okay,
the town gets charged per ton.
gotcha.
The cost to then move that material, process that material and move it to an end site, that's what's incorporated in that
That's what the
per
town
ton
is
cost,
paying.
correct.
So the residential customers are paying the cost to get it from my can in front of my house to your transfer station?
Correct,
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify.
yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I guess so you're saying that based on all these factors, we're seeing these huge, I mean, I didn't figure out the math, but I mean, it's probably 50% increase in cost in the last 4 years that our residential customers are getting assessed. I mean, I think it was like $240 5 years ago or something, and now it's $400 a year.
Yeah, I didn't analyze it over a long period of time and incorporate all those factors. I can tell you it was about 17% this past year, and attributed to a lot of those, most all of those factors that I highlighted there.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, but the increase, I think, was even more than 17%, or it was quite a decent increase this year. So it was 17% for residential customers?
well, it was, quite frankly, we capped it. It wasn't 17% for anyone. I mean, we tried to be as conscious of
Yeah.
this and absorb as much of this as we possibly
We're
could.
just talking about curbside pickup.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And that's what, I mean, don't mistake me, I mean, I appreciate what you do, I mean, I see it, I mean, I work in this kind of related field as well, where I see a lot of these costs, I mean, I'm paying this, I'm a finance officer, that's my full-time job, you know, so I'm not blind to this stuff, I
Sure.
mean, I'm paying, you know, I'm buying rooftop units, I'm paying labor, I mean, all these things, but I guess my question was the separation, cause I feel like we're getting hit double, you know, we're paying huge increases, I mean, we've gone up 50% in 3 years in our tipping fees, from 400,000 to 634,000, but then at the same time, we've gone up a huge amount on the residential fees.
Yeah, I mean, the two are separate from one another. I mean, I think, you know, I actually have to work through some math a little bit to know what that effect really is, but there's the disposal component, the actual per ton cost disposal component, and then there's the transportation component, and the trucking component for the transfer station. I believe, and I'm not intimately familiar with the budget, but I believe that's included in the,
Correct,
in the line I'm referring to.
Yeah, it is,
So
yeah.
those costs, the town, was able to keep the same tip fee for 9 years. Yeah, you saw an increase in that year 10 when we went through the RFP. So that's weighing heavy, I'm sure, on the budget item there.
Yeah, we went from an average of $85 a ton tipping to 104 is where we're at now.
Okay.
There was 180. Trash, recycling, and bulky waste are all a little bit different in tipping fees. If you look at the average, we went from about 85 to 104, so.
Okay. Alright. Okay, I mean, is there any protections that we can offer? I mean, I know we've heard some, different, even today, I mean, I appreciate you coming down with your ideas. I mean, letting people know about installment options. I don't know if that's clear on the bill. That people have the option for installments or, anything else to kind of make it a little bit more palatable for the residents. I mean, are there things, communications? I mean, it's probably too late for this year, but I mean, for future years, things like that.
Yeah, no, I think it's always, I mean, it's always something that we look to consider. That's why we made some of those changes, and again, they were made very recently here, the installment payment changes, as we were starting to get some calls from folks, and we recognized that was something that would be beneficial, right?
Could we put that on the bill though, just to make it clear? I mean, even if there's like a 5% premium for it, I mean, I know it's not free to finance it, but I mean, to give people the option, because a lot of people feel, I know I did, that like I gotta come up with $400 right around Christmas.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's tough, for a lot of households to, hey, January 1st, you gotta have $400, after you just went through the holidays, which for most families is one of the costliest times of the year.
Sure, yeah, no, understood. And those are things that I'm hearing everything here,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll
No, I thank you for
take a
coming
look.
down. I mean, this
Yeah.
is very helpful. Hopefully we can post this on our website. I mean, this was great.
Thank you, Eric, appreciate it.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Great presentation, appreciate it, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, I was gonna ask, Carl Landolina to make his presentation, so you can do it now and then we'll be done with it.
Okay.
So, our town attorney, Carl Landolina, is going to speak on recreational cannabis and speak about what the options are with regards to the town regulating the retail.
You wanna do it from here, can I just pull?
Well, Eric's probably leaving, I would assume, unless he wants to.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome to, this is a hot topic.
I mean,
I
Eric,
might-
you're
I might
welcome
stick
to
around for
stay,
this
but,
one.
yeah.
Do you wanna come over here and?
You're welcome to.
Oh, okay.
You're welcome to sit
Kicking
right
it out,
here.
Eric.
I will get out of the way.
Out of the hot, thank you very much. Top one, yeah, I love hot.
That's good, thank you.
Bill, how are you?
Great.
How are you? I'm well, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. For the record, Carl Landolina. So, I'm here with respect to this agenda item, which is the recreational cannabis law, which went into effect July 1st of last year. And so the zoning commission, which is one authority which can regulate the use of, or the sale and growing of recreational marijuana here in Somers, we've had some conversations, and as a result of those conversations, the commission wanted to know or have some input from the Board of Selectmen as to what their position is. Because under the statute, it can be regulated under an ordinance, which under your charter, you would have the power to adopt such an ordinance, or it can be regulated under the zoning regulations. So those are sort of the two choices here. And regulation means the authority to ban or prohibit the retail sale in town and ban or prohibit cultivators from engaging in this activity in town. So, so we're here to talk about, I guess, to gauge the commission's, the Board of Selectmen, your feelings on this topic and where you think the town may want to be headed. So, there also is a provision in the statute that provides that the voters of the town can file a petition,
Yeah.
and they can put this on a vote that would take place at a the next regular election, which I assume is election in 2022, right, at the end of this year?
Yep.
So you could ask the voters to vote on it at that time, if they filed a petition. Or you could, on your own, ask someone like me to draft a regulation or an ordinance for you to consider. Now, under your charter, if you were to consider an ordinance, you would be required to at least hold one public hearing on it. So that would give you the ability, I guess, to hear from the public as to what they think should be done with this law here in the town of Summers. And then based upon that information, you could either go forward with an ordinance, or it would seem like, so if it seemed like maybe the voters of the town thought that having at least one retailer in town would be a great idea, then you could say to the zoning commission, okay, it sounds like people want this, draft a regulation. So the easiest way to gauge, I think, the opinion of the community and the feelings of the community would be to propose an ordinance. And it could be as simple as saying, we propose an ordinance to ban the retail sale and to ban cultivation of marijuana here in the confines of Summers. Now, the law provides that if you decide to go forward and allow this activity to take place, because your population is less than $25,000,
25,000 people.
25,000 people, yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I always think in terms of money,
Well, these guys over here.
right, Bill? We always think in terms of money.
Oh, yeah, everything's
Yeah.
about money.
Yeah, so, you're only allowed one retailer
Right.
in any event. And you'd only be allowed one mini
Cultivator.
mini cultivator, yeah. So a micro cultivator. Now, a micro cultivator is defined in this, section. I believe a micro cultivator would be someone who has between 2,000 and 10,000 square feet of floor space of growing, marijuana. So it's not a very large facility. All these facilities, of course, are indoors. It's not like growing tobacco. So that's all you would be allowed to have if you wanted it to happen here in town. At the end of, sometime in 2024, Department of Consumer Protection, which is regulating this and issuing permits like they do for package stores and liquor use, is gonna take a look at how many permits do we have out there, where are they located, and then decide if the number of retailers and micro cultivators per population needs to be changed. So at some point, they might say, okay, if you have less than 25, you can go to 2 of each. That's yet to be determined. That's going to be determined by the state of Connecticut at some point in the future. So I can't guarantee that if you decide to allow this activity, it's only going to be 1 and it's going to stay at 1. It could grow to 2 or 3 or who knows, depending on how the legislature decides to move along with this. So the other thing I want to tell you is there is a tax that you're allowed to collect. There are some limitations on what you can use the money for. It can't go into the general fund to be used for any purpose. There are some limitations on the use of the money. And then you are allowed within, I think, the first make sure I get this right. It's on page 2, section 3, public safety reimbursement. And it says for up to 30 days after you let a retailer open, just retailers, you can ask the retailer to bear necessary and reasonable costs for the community in providing public safety services related to the opening of the store. So to the extent that massive crowds start coming from all over the state to buy marijuana in Summers, and you incur additional costs, police, whatever, you can ask the owner to pay you up to $50,000 towards those costs. whatever those costs might be in the first 30 days. So,
The advantage we have is they already have it in Massachusetts, so, yeah, I don't see it as a big destination.
yeah, it probably wouldn't be, but, you know, that probably went in for the bigger towns and, you know, you know, I remember when the casino opened on day one, that was, you know, they could have used a lot of more police, so I think they're thinking that there's gonna be a rush, and probably not happening, given the fact that 5 miles from here, you can go buy marijuana. So,
Well, the police always say that they can tell you who's coming in, they can just smell it when the cars come in from Massachusetts. Just ask the police, they'll just tell you. They can smell it and they know they're coming in, they don't have to look at the license plate.
Now, so you know, you can prohibit the use of marijuana in public places in town. And, since you don't have 50,000 population or greater, you're not required under law to provide a public space for people to smoke marijuana. In towns that have 50,000 or greater populations, they are required actually to provide some and designate at least one public space in their community where people will be allowed to use marijuana. You don't have to provide that given your population. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of it. So, you know, you can look through this, discuss it, and if you want to, you know, ask me to draft a simple ordinance, let's say prohibiting its sale and prohibiting the growing of marijuana, I can certainly do that, get it in front of you, and then you can schedule 1, 2, 10 public hearings as you wish, and let the community tell you what they think about the opportunity here, and then decide either to scrap the ordinance, pass it, change it, or say to the zoning commission, this is a zoning matter, you handle it.
Yeah.
Now, if you do nothing by July 1st, 2024, all right, which is a long way away, if you do nothing by then, you'll have to treat the retail sale of marijuana like you treat the retail sale of any other commodity in the town of Summers. So, if, you know, you'd have to give at least somebody permission to do it because you haven't banned it at that point.
So, you know, to me, I mean, just as, my personal views here is that as a member of the Board of Selectmen, we need to get this for the town, to get input, feedback on what the town believes is best for Summers. And the best way to do that is to pass an ordinance, which we could do maybe next week after we've discussed this.
Well, I guess the question would be, I mean, I understand and the approach, but I mean, I guess the question would be, can we just call a public hearing to discuss the matter without a proposed ordinance? I mean, we can hold a public hearing just because we wanna hold a public hearing, correct?
I would suggest if you're gonna hold a public hearing that there's something attached to it, so.
You gotta have a.
You know, there has to be a proper purpose, and, I wouldn't call it a public hearing, but you can hold public meetings and let people talk, you can do that. But, with respect to this matter, I would suggest that you propose an ordinance before you do that.
So we couldn't call a public hearing to, gather public input regarding proposed marijuana regulations for the town of Summers?
You couldn't call it a public hearing because you're only authorized to hold a public hearing, in your case, under your charter, for, adopting an ordinance.
How about a special town meeting, so there has to be,
Well, town meetings usually require a vote
they
of
require a
some
vote,
count.
okay.
Yeah, so there has to be some resolution that you're acting on.
Okay.
You know, but look, I'm not saying that you couldn't have the same kind of informational meeting and call it something else and get public input. If that's the way you wanna go, that would be entirely up to you. But, you know, my suggestion here is because what I frankly see a lot of communities are doing moratoriums on this, through their zoning commissions, and they're saying, look, we're going to have a 6-month or a 1-year moratorium before we try to adopt any regulations, and while those are, we're thinking about that, we are, not gonna take any applications. And a lot of towns are doing that. I read the statute very narrowly, in a very conservative way, and the statute says you can either allow it or ban it. So, having a moratorium for some short period of time falls in the middle, and I'm sure there are a lot of town attorneys who would disagree with me, but there hasn't been any test in the courts of whether you can actually hold a moratorium or call a moratorium on this specific topic. You can on other zoning things. You probably can, but again, I like to be more conservative and say, let's stick to what the statute says.
Well, Carl, this is just my personal opinion, I'm opposed to, the selling of marijuana in the town.
Mm-hmm.
I just would like to have us three pass an ordinance, and if there is enough interest, then, people would have to show up and show that interest. And then as it says here, that if 10% of the voters then, vote for it in a referendum,
Mm-hmm.
then that would change things, but at this point,
Right.
Basically because just what I grew up with as a kid and what's happened in Colorado, just from what I've read, I just don't see any reason for it, isn't gonna be a gain. And I know we're gonna get a 3%, if we did sell it, there is some tax revenue, but it was, when I was growing up as a kid, I'm sorry to say, it was a gateway drug, and, I still believe it is. And, I just think it's a big problem, and I think it's just gonna create more problems for the young folks in this town. We already got problems with kids vaping. We already got kids, we see, bags of fentanyl up in Hartford. I just don't see it as a situation that we wanna add to the mess, and we already have enough problems with it, so that's why, that's just my personal opinion. I'm
Mhm.
just totally opposed to it. Nobody's shown me yet that it's a positive thing.
So this is something I think we could, consider what Carl has presented to us and discuss this maybe next week or
Sure.
the week after.
That's fine.
But I think the most important thing is teeing this up for a public hearing. I think that is absolutely critical, regardless of what our personal views are.
Some clerk, can I ask some questions?
Sure.
So, on that, I'd like to revisit the taxability you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, there's two separate entities here. There's a micro cultivator and there's a retail sales outlet. And is that tax the same on both sales for?
I don't believe it is. I'd have to look into that. I know it's, there is a chance for an additional tax on retailers. I don't know for micro cultivators whether there is or not.
Good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
And the other thing is, I recall, I may have read this, and maybe you can confirm this, but that tax is levied by the town's tax collector on that enterprise, and not the state. The state's not the middle guy.
Right.
The town would collect it, and then I'm
Directly.
sure they may have to kick something back to the state, but the town is responsible for that.
I think you're correct on that, yes.
Yeah, and the town gets 3.5%, and the state gets something like, 11 or 12%.
Well, it's like the license, we keep some, but they take most of it,
Great.
What it says here from the Connecticut Council for Municipalities is that each municipality with a cannabis retailer, hybrid retailer, or micro cultivator must submit to DRS at least annually the name and contact information of the individual designated to receive notification regarding the tax. The DRS commissioner will notify the designee of the tax, so sounds like there's, some, and it also says that there's an additional 6.35% sales tax that they also have to collect when they sell it, so it's kind of not too much detail, but it
The
does.
only reason I bring it out is I'd like to figure out what the potential would be,
Yeah, I think that's a
for a
great
micro
interest.
cultivator. I don't see the same kind of risks in the community with a cultivator that I do with
Right.
a retail establishment. And again, I would just delineate them clearly for the people to understand in your,
It'd be nice to know what kind of
Ordinance.
tax revenue would
Yeah.
be possible
I
with a
mean,
micro cultivator.
yeah.
Yeah, my question with the cultivator, cause I was talking to the assessor today, would they fall underneath the farm exemption? Would there, or machinery exemptions, or anything of that nature? He tends to think that they might get exemptions, and so then
Yeah,
tax burden, no personal property tax.
Yeah, I'm not sure,
That might be true.
Yeah.
But if, let's say they were taxed at, cause they wouldn't pay sales tax, they have sales and use tax numbers, but they are, selling, right?
Right.
Wholesaling,
Wholesale.
so, the
Using
tax may
volume.
apply to them. It might be easier to calculate, and again,
Absolutely.
I'm the wrong guy to ask, but how often do you get a crop? How many plants what's your yield in 10,000 square feet? What's the wholesale value, and then do the numbers, and that math.
That's correct.
It'd be a little harder to calculate a retail sales, cause
Yeah.
the numbers could be all over the place. I have
And
no.
you said that the proceeds were restricted in use, they can't be used in the general fund, or they can?
There are specific, areas in which they can be used, right? The money can't be used to help you buy, I don't know, some new piece of equipment or a copier or something. It has to be used for,
Social services.
social service kinds of programs,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
anti-drug
You could fund your
programs.
social
Yeah,
services
exactly.
with that,
You know,
and
and-
you could actually,
Yeah, you can put it to good use.
Yeah, mental health, addiction services, youth services bureau, community
Right,
civic,
yeah.
things, all those things.
Yeah, you'll find a use for the money if you
There's a
go
whole
in
list
that
of them right
direction.
here.
Yeah.
And I guess the
okay, I
only,
just wanna put more thought into it, rather than,
yeah, agreed.
yeah.
Agreed. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only thing I guess, my only reluctance is having to take a position before the public hearing. It almost seems like, you put something out there that's like a placeholder, it may not even be our true position, just so we can generate the public comment. Like, I'd really rather get the public comment first,
Mm-hmm.
and then form our position. So,
That seems more logical, actually.
that's my only
Yeah.
kind of holdup, is that we say, hey, we're gonna ban it, but hey, maybe we're not gonna ban it,
All right,
but we
well, let
wanna
me-
see what you think, so we're gonna ban it, and then take your input.
So, I think what I'm hearing is you'd like to hold some kind of public session.
Yeah,
We're not gonna call it a public hearing under the statute.
yeah.
We're not gonna call it a town meeting under your charter.
Couldn't you hold
We're gonna
a
call it
public
something
meeting
else.
For this purpose?
Open, an open session to talk about whether the residents of Summers, yeah, you could probably,
Take public comment, but
Yeah.
not call it a public hearing.
yeah, we'll put notices in the paper like you would for a public hearing and start there.
Why
Sure.
don't we just have a board of selectmen meeting for this particular purpose?
Yeah, no, I think we should.
Invite the public to a
Yeah.
board of selectmen meeting.
Well, it'd
have to be if
to
they're
talk
all
about
the
this
same.
issue.
You could do that as well, just,
Not a bad idea.
and say we're gonna
Yeah.
hold one workshop session and the public comment's gonna be limited to
Yeah,
whether or not we should, yeah,
that's a good.
And then we take that public comment,
And then
and
go-
then we draft
yeah.
the ordinance based on what we've heard.
yeah,
And then we'll have another public hearing as a requirement for the ordinance, but
Yeah.
that's fine.
yeah. So, from my perspective, we've talked several times in the other side of the aisle, the planning commission or the zoning commission. And it's been almost a year and we haven't really moved the ball anywhere, so.
They would like the Board
Well,
of
they wanna
Selectmen
pass it out to
to-
you.
Well, I think we're ready to start to move things forward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I
And
said
this is
it
a
on-
good first step.
Yeah,
Yes.
Could you, if you're saying holding like an informational meeting, could it be a joint meeting, Carl, with the zoning commission and the board of selectmen, so that you have all potential actors, people who are going to act on this, here in the same night?
yeah, I suppose you could, but it might be better if just members of the zoning commission individually come and sit and
Could
listen.
you do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
as long as they don't sit together and discuss things amongst
Okay,
themselves,
I mean, okay,
Yeah.
they'd have to be instructed ahead of time. I'm just thinking, it would be good to have the people who are potentially going to act on it, whether it's the board of selectmen or the zoning commission, here
Yeah,
with the public, in the public.
but if it gets put back in their, court, I mean, they're gonna have to have public hearings on it anyway, cause it'll
Well,
be fixed,
exactly, their
Yeah.
view is similar to the board of selectmen, like what does the public
yeah.
want?
Mhm.
What, they wanna hear from the public as well.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate the presentation.
Okay,
Thank
any
you.
other
Informative.
questions about
I
this?
think
or-
we have a path, so
Yeah.
that's what's important.
Good.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're
Thanks,
the
guys,
best.
appreciate it.
Awesome.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda, boards and commissions, appointments, resignations. So, we do have, with regards to the Board of Assessment Appeals, they has a three-member board. Dave Palmer is one of the three members, who has now moved out of town. So that creates a vacancy, and, the chairman, Devlin, recommended to me earlier in the week that, and he'd spoken to Keith Berger as someone that had talked to him, and he was interested in the position. Keith has sent a communication to members of the, Board of Selectmen as well as to the town clerk and to the, Republican town chair, expressing his interest, and, let's just see what his, letter says. Trying to find his letter here.
It should be right in there.
Right here, there you go.
It's the first.
Okay, great, thank you. So his letter says, gentlemen, and it's addressed to, Dave Marty, myself, Mr. Burrell, chairman of the RTC, Republican Town Committee. Says, gentlemen, I've been asked by, Francis Bud Devlin to consider joining him on the Board of Assessor Appeals. I'm not sure whether that's the correct name. As I understand, the responsibilities of this board are to hear and rule on appeals from town taxpayers on the assessed value of their property. My 38 years of self-employment in several different businesses, coupled with numerous owned commercial and residential properties in several different states, along with the owned equipment and tools that have been taxed, are a perfect background. Other than a short duration during my divorce, I have been a resident of Somers since 1996. I've served in the fire department since 2006 and have achieved the rank of EMS lieutenant and associate president. Somers is my home. It is my passion to participate in making the town a better place for all who live, work, and visit. Thank you for your consideration. Thank you. Do we have a motion for, appointing Keith Berger to be a
I would be happy to make a motion to appoint Keith Berger to the Board of Assessors.
I'll
Assessment
second it.
Appeals. Board of Assessment Appeals.
Board of Assessment Appeals, I'm sorry, Assessor Appeals.
I'll second
Any,
it.
discussion?
Well, I guess my question is, so, number one, the vacancy is created by someone moving out of town?
Yeah.
So they resign their seat by virtue of moving out of town, so we don't need to accept the resignation?
Right.
Okay, and then this
If
is,
he no longer qualifies, it's automatic.
so now we're appointing for the balance of a 3-year term?
It's, to, December
2024.
22nd, 2023.
So it'd actually be a 3-year term essentially?
Correct.
No,
Well, it's 1 month shy.
Oh, well, yeah.
2023, isn't it?
No,
I thought
it's,
it says right here.
I mean, they are
24,
3-year
okay,
terms in the
24.
charter, but do we stagger the terms, and what are the other terms of the other members?
They're staggered, they are.
So this is a full 3-year term?
No, this is less than 3 years.
Well, it's 1 year, I mean, 1 month
It's-
short.
No, it's,
2024, right?
2 years.
it's 2 years.
Well, it's got the whole rest of this year.
It's 1 month short of 2 years.
Yes, it's 12/22/24.
well, that's what
Now,
I,
if you would've been appointed 2 months ago, it would've been a full 3 years.
right.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's
all right,
just shy
sure.
of 3 years.
Right.
You're right.
Okay, so we have these staggered them properly, so
We do.
that, okay, and the party affiliation is fine?
It
Yes,
is.
RD.
Because he was a D.
So, Della Ferment is an I,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
then Bud Devlin is a D.
D.
Right, we're all set.
And Mr. Berger
No
is an
problem.
R.
For
Okay.
clarification purposes, Bill, the website says that Palmer's term would have expired 12/22/23.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's
Right.
what it says on our website.
That's what I,
Okay,
So,
that's what,
okay.
that was just different than what it says
So
here.
that is correct then.
that's what I originally
My
thought.
apologies.
Oh, okay.
So now we'll have
So
24.
the term
Down
is,
here.
no, the term is,
Expired 23.
expires
I-
December 22nd, 2023.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we need to amend the motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll accept that amendment to the motion. I guess you made the motion, Bob, so you have to change it. We're gonna make the expiration 2023?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, I'll accept that.
12/22/23.
Right.
Okay, got it.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, the motion passes. Thank you. Let's see. Opportunity to add urgent agenda items. Do we have any of those tonight? No, we don't. Finance report. Mr. Marinaccio.
Yes, I've got a couple of items. First
I'm
item
sure you
is
do.
that the assessor has filed a grand list, with OPM this past week. I'll give you a snapshot of it.
We've got,
You probably have that in our monthly report
that's
to you.
no,
But for purposes of discussion, we'll just use that
Okay.
little chart. If you wanna see the more detail of it, it's in there's
the handout.
other charts in there in the monthly report that I sent to
Those are great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
So we just wanna point out, that, the total list is up 3.48%. That's, the total of real estate, personal property, and motor vehicle. The new value is $969,420,900. We're approaching $1 billion grand list, probably will happen next year. So, the biggest jump on that list is, motor vehicles. And that is because the value of used cars has increased dramatically, in COVID. And this I'm sure will result in a lot of, complaints and appeals.
mhm.
And because it seems to be, an undercurrent, everywhere right now, and, it's something that people aren't used to. They're used to having their vehicles depreciate, and therefore the tax on that vehicle go down.
Sure.
Now it's just the opposite, so.
But that 22.21% is based on what? So as far as appeals go, it's based on the value.
They use the
established.
NADA books, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they're not pulling this out of the air, I mean,
That's
it's
my point.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
So that grand list, off the quick calculation would say that it would increase, our potential increase in taxes would be, $868,786. However, that's not really gonna happen because there's, items in that grand list like, exemptions, I'll use Hillsdale College for an example. So tax exempt will be deducted, taxes that are under, appeal right now will probably be deducted. The taxes that are in court cases being contested will be deducted out of there, so, when those are then netted out, that number will come down. And then we will, determine what we estimate our taxes to be for the budget, so we'll have that number for you.
So it might come down to somewhere around 600,000 or so, do you think?
That's hard to say, but yeah, you know.
We'll wait till you get the number.
I would think that, given what we know already in terms of what's under appeal,
Mhm.
that's, don't forget, that's not yeah, well, it may come down, but it would be the assessment that would be that's under appeal, not the tax, so. And when we do get that tax number ultimately, and we'll walk you through this when we get to it, we will, apply a collection rate to that.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
historically, we do not collect 100% of our taxes in a year, usually in the 99 point something range, and that's, the factor we will apply to it also, so.
Mhm.
And this is the 100% grand list, correct, not the 70%?
This is
Adjusted.
the 100% grand.
Grand list is 100% and then.
That is
okay.
correct.
Great.
And then you multiply that, and then you see last year's, and this is as of October 1.
Yep.
Everybody should realize that
Okay.
your following year's tax levy is based on your prior year's grand list, so.
This is perfect, no, thank you for this.
Great.
Very good, thank you
Thanks a
very
lot.
much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, you're tracking, I assume, and it's not gonna impact us this year, but it may, the proposal in the state to cap the motor vehicle at I believe
Yeah.
29 mils.
We're still under.
So we're under that, and so that won't affect us until the day comes we're over 29 mils, and then that would affect, well, it won't affect us until they make that. If they lower that, yeah, so we're at
They might adjust
26.66,
it
so
sometime,
our
too.
rate is not near the 29.
Yeah,
so.
and it has probably in the future.
Great.
Or they might charge us the difference.
Good thing
You think I'm joking?
I'm gonna legislate.
Okay.
And then just the second piece, I just wanna give you a quick update on the progress that we're having with this nonprofit and small business, COVID, grant. We've had a meeting today, and we're well on our way to, executing this on time. We reviewed our draft documents, they're all finalized right now. We have a beta site set up on our website, so that we can do online fillable right into, online, applications. We're getting a first selectman letter ready to go, press releases are in draft. We've created a, postcard leaflet to go out. We've actually gotten, bids back later, in the day today, so we know who we're gonna go with. Tim is charged with getting elected representatives here. We're going to set up a time within the last, week, second to last week of February, where we're actually gonna have an announcement meeting and have our elected officials here. We're looking for Joe Courtney, we're looking for a senator, and then our local
State representative.
state representatives.
So obviously make sure we get invited too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna, that's right.
It'll be a kickoff event, you'll all
So
hear
we're gonna have
about
a
it.
kickoff meeting, and, so it's coming together, and the application period will be from March 1st to March 31st, so.
Okay.
So that's it.
Be
Any
well
questions on any of
publicized.
that?
And then can you send us the final documents before they go to the public, just in advance? I mean, it doesn't have to be a month in advance, but just once the final document, just copy them to the board?
Sure.
Thank you. Yep, just so we can see them. 'Cause I know we're gonna get questions about them, I always do, so.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, updates from boards and commissions, a presentation and approval of scheduled payments.
What's the core logic ones, Brian?
Core Logic is a tax refund. They always, because they pay, 75 bills in one shot, they always pay for somebody who has returned a lease or something early. And so, it's just that time of the year where the big hitters get their, tax payments in, and then we refund those for them.
Do we approve the tax refund separately?
They are listed, or it's on the front page, or the, it tells you how many they are and what their total dollar value is.
I'm just saying, as far as like a board action, I mean, I know we do it with scheduled payments, but I mean, we don't authorize tax payments separately, tax refund payments separately? Okay, that's interesting.
We've never done that.
Yeah, okay.
We get a motion for, the amount?
Yeah. Yeah, I have to make a motion for the payment authorization for $107,353.57.
Second it.
Any further discussion?
What was the, payment to Steve Jacobs?
It's in there.
It's in there.
It's right at the bottom.
This is, monthly pension.
Oh, so those are pensions now?
Yep.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
are
these are the
pensions.
pensions, yeah.
Those are
You
their
see, Ann Logan is,
She's in there too, and
so I noticed substantially more, so I was just curious, cause Ann Logan had 36 years,
the
35
form of
years.
payment that they chose.
Beg pardon?
Form of payment
Oh,
that they
okay,
chose.
yeah,
Yeah, over how many years?
spouse and all that, yeah.
we get like 4 different choices.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. Yeah, good job. Yeah, I looked through here and didn't have any questions, it looks pretty straightforward.
I know, I missed our meeting, Tim.
I know, sorry about that, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with it.
Sign off on it then?
Yeah, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Motion passes, we'll sign off on it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, we next go to, updates from boards and commissions. I don't think we have any of those today. Following that, we have pending business, discussion, possible action on approval of, recommended vendor for police body cameras and other equipment. I believe that, Kim Ludwig, our, police administrative head is, out of town, therefore can't comment on that. She's got information.
She did send everybody an email and update.
Yeah, I saw the
so,
email, yeah.
We can ask her questions about that next
She hopes to be
week.
here next week and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
Good.
and
yeah.
finalize everything.
So we'll table that until next week. Discussion of possible action on, town staffing and reorganization for sanitarian, town engineer, land use department. I'd like to just mention that I have had a discussion with our part-time health director, Luigi Santori, and he has agreed to make a presentation to us next week at this time.
Okay, great.
Sounds great.
And I would like to encourage the members of the board to prepare questions and give them to Kim LaFleur, and we'll get them to Luigi in advance so he can take a look at it and maybe shorten the time it takes him to make his presentation and can direct it to the concerns of the committee. Does that sound good?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. New business.
Todd, you can just, yeah, you might as well.
We're still on time.
You got the microphone.
Okay, new business, Department of Public Works, Todd Rowland has a request.
Good evening. I'm back again asking to fill 2 seasonal on-call plow drivers. There are two of our former, one is out with a neck injury for the rest of the year. And the other one, after getting hired, decided that he didn't wanna commit to it.
Didn't really wanna work that hard.
So we posted the jobs, conducted interviews, and we have 2 candidates we believe, will be a good fit. The first is Sam Corview. Sam is a Summers resident, graduated from Summers High School. He's currently a volunteer member of the fire department, works in construction and landscaping, and has snowplowing experience. Our second candidate is Matthew Rook. Matthew is a resident of Summers and works in the HVAC industry as a technician and as a supervisor. Also has equipment operation and snow removal experience. We conducted phone interviews and then conducted in-person interviews with both of these gentlemen, and we'd like to bring them on board and put them into our training program, and hopefully they can fill the 2 open positions we have for plow operators.
Can we do this with one motion for both people? You individually, just mention it? Wanna make a motion?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we hire the 2 candidates, Sam Corvo and Matthew Rook, as, what are they, just, snow removal operators?
Seasonal on-call snowplow operators.
Okay,
yep.
seasonal on-call, snow removal operators.
At a rate of $23 an hour.
Okay, at a rate of $23 per hour for both candidates.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you.
passes.
Thank you, Todd.
I was gonna say, I mean, just for the future to make it easier too, like Todd put the motion right here at the bottom, we can just put that right in the agenda as a proposed motion.
Sure.
But he has it all listed out, it just makes it,
Absolutely.
makes it nice and
Okay.
smooth.
Got it. I can do that.
Thank you, Todd. We next, go to our budget workshop, registrar of voters. Mr. David McCaffrey,
Like,
Republican Registrar of Voters.
Thank you. Good evening.
I should mention before you start that we do have we just as of yesterday have a Democrat Registrar of Voters, Jeannie Reed, was sworn in by our town clerk. That's R-E-E-D. Thank you.
Thank you.
that's why you said that.
Okay, well, so, the budget request that I placed is, been modified in accordance with the request, that we, make it similar to the fire department budget line item, so it broke out a little differently than in past years, where we normally just have the overall amount, across, different line items. So this year, of course, I have it broken down by each type of event, and, the numbers, the increases were based upon, information I received from the Register of Voters Association of Connecticut, for each of the types of, whether they were, the, ballot, printing of the ballots, or, the legal notices, the increase in prices for software, the company that maintains the tabulators indicated they were gonna have a price increase as well. Pretty much across the board, regarding printing and equipment, went up on average, between 5 and 10%. As far as elections for the next fiscal year, we only have, we have, possibility for a, dual primary, the, budget referendum and the, state election. And, so those figures are all broken out. So, as you look on the history, there are some that were populated in previous years that are not populated for this year, or, for the next fiscal year, because for instance, the presidential only occurs every 4 years, et cetera. So some are at the 0 level.
I don't know if I see that level of detail.
Yeah, so what I sent them, I summarized.
I'm sorry?
I summarized your sheet because it got too messy.
So, okay, so on mine, because I tried to complete with the way the fire department had it, because I know it added some confusion that way, but, for
Well,
instance,
I think the big,
You got the same line item listed like 7 times.
I think the big question,
That's not what the fire
the
department.
big question that we're looking at is,
Yep.
The Register of Voters stipend has gone up 46%.
so
Why is that?
yeah, so I very
46%
rarely,
1 year.
ever submit any increase, requests, and so what I did was, I went to the Secretary of State's, page that indicated all of the towns, and based upon, of the 169 towns, all those towns that had the same number of registered voters and the number of polling places, in this case, we have 1 polling place, and out of those 8 towns that there are, I went across and utilized what their stipend is for their registrars, and I based it upon those numbers and indicated the increase to be more commensurate with what, the registrars for a similar sized town are paid.
So what's the breakdown of that? I mean, as far as, I know we have 2 registrars and there's also staff. What's the breakdown, the detailed breakdown?
So as far as the registrars, I have, basically, 4,000, per registrar increase annually.
$4,000 increase, so what's the baseline salary now?
It's,
8,100 each.
86.
8,600.
8,600 each.
So a $4,000, so a 50% increase is the proposal?
46%.
Yeah, and so, to be helpful,
Yeah.
I have a document here
Oh, thank you.
that basically shows what do registrars do, and page 1 is basically a simple graphic, but page 2 and the following pages are under state statute, indicates, what registrars do, what they're required to do by state law, how many hours on average during the year that the registrars perform these duties.
Yeah. I guess the question though is, we budgeted last year, and I believe we spent $17,800 for the stipend for registrars, and you're seeking a 46% increase.
Right, which is
why,
still.
I understand the logic, you're looking at what other registrars are paid in other like towns, but I suspect that Summers has been a kind of a lagger for a while.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Okay.
That's absolutely correct. And then, in the case of the, not to get away from the registrar stipend, but also regarding the temporary election fees, those are for the poll workers that we pay. The minimum wage.
So that's the $10,000 above it?
Yep.
Yes. So the minimum wage, of course, is going up in July to at $14 an hour. So in the previous years, we've had $13, $14, and $15 an hour based upon the different types of positions that we hire the poll workers to do. So this year around, it would be basically 14, 15, 16 to, you know, complete there are different types of positions that afford different types of responsibilities, and then that's where I came up with those numbers.
So I guess for consistency purposes, the board had agreed at the beginning, that no salaries would be submitted, at the department level, because what's happened historically, going back years, you know, some departments submit raises, some don't submit raises, it kinda gets all over the place.
Right.
And it becomes unfair.
Mhm.
So I mean, I would recommend we pull the proposed increase from this budget, and then we discuss it when we discuss the salary pool for the town in
Absolutely,
general.
yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Which one are you talking about, the stipend increase?
The 8,100, I'd say strike that, put it back at zero, and then, but we'll add that to the discussion when we do this.
You're talking about 25,900, which is what the budget figure.
Yeah, so we'd put it back to 17,800, leave it flat, which is what we've instructed every town department to do with the salaries.
Okay.
We have not allowed any director in any budget to propose an increase
Okay.
in any salaries.
Okay.
So it just keeps it consistent, that's all.
Okay, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. The
Yep.
only other addition that is different from what your records may show, and I'm not sure if Brian, on the 22-23 budget under training, I need to actually increase that from $750 to $2,750, because I had forgotten that now that we have a new registrar of voters, that registrar will require during the next fiscal year to go to the Yukon training, which is a $2,000 fee.
Right,
That's under which line now?
training.
So he's moving the figure from $750 for the budget to $2,750.
2,000
Right.
in 1 year, or is it?
Within a 2-year period, the registrar must complete the training, and the training is a $2,000 fee.
New registrar.
Most people do it in a year.
Yeah, okay.
So, and plus it's probably gonna be a little easier this time, because when Bob and I did it, we had to physically go to Yukon.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
you
we had
can
to go
do
to Hartford,
online training.
yeah.
Now it's virtual, okay.
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
Is it less expensive if it's online?
so they don't have to pay mileage.
I don't think so, unfortunately.
No mileage, right?
So do we have, Dave, do you have any backup for the increase in fees? I mean, the 38% increase in supplies and the 10% increase in printing, I mean, do we have anything?
I have documentation from the Registrar of Voters Association of Connecticut, plus, from the current chairman, from his office. I have updates from, the company that programs our tabulators, LHS.
Yep.
Has indicated they're gonna, do a increase, and, IVS has, indicated that they're also gonna do an increase. That IVS is the new system that, processes ballots electronically for, deaf and blind, voters.
Okay.
So, just prior to the budget period, the Rovac Association went out to all of the vendors that we routinely have for elections and asked them, what can we expect for increases this year?
Okay.
So,
No, that sounds fine.
Any other questions for,
Yeah, Dave, I had asked, Brian, when we were talking about, you know, hiring a new IT, company, that if we could include in your budget, some money for, computers.
Yeah, we talked about.
so, I actually, I spoke to Kim and
Okay.
Brian earlier,
Yeah.
asked if we needed to include the request for, new laptops
Yeah.
that we used during the election. And, Kim and Brian indicated that is going to be addressed separately through the IT budget.
Okay, good. I just wanna make sure, 'cause.
We do centralized purchasing, yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Right.
okay, yeah.
And that will definitely be helpful.
Yeah.
We use, an excellent program, and we are starting to see more and more glitches with the current,
Yep.
Laptops.
Yeah.
Okay,
any other questions for David?
so we'll get a revised budget then, Brian, with those revisions?
Sending it right now.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
And
thank
let's
you.
just make sure we have a comment too, that there's a one-time increase for the training, so that next year we remember to reduce it proportionately.
That's
That's
good.
just a one-time,
Correct, right, correct.
and we'll
Well,
put it back to 750 next year.
And so, the new,
I made
the,
notes in
the-
I made comments, I'm gonna send you into the Excel instead of a PDF so that you
Okay.
can read the
And
comments.
the appointed registrar does not have to do the training until they're elected, so they can have this period of time to determine whether or not they wanna run in November.
Oh.
Between now and November. They have until July to make their decision for the caucus. So,
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
the presentation.
appreciate it.
So next we have, Director of Recreation and Leisure. Maureen Parsons.
Hi, Maureen.
Hello. Hey, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
So you will see, on our first budget page, you'll see that one of the, major increases that we have, is we're looking for a new position, in recreation. We are hoping to add a recreation coordinator. Right now, it's Kim Halligan and myself on the recreation side. And we have been working, for the last year, enhancing and increasing our programs, for youth and families and for, the community. So in order to continue to do that, we're hoping that we can, get a little assistance in the department, so we can continue to enhance and expand. Right now, the big, expansion is for, some of the early release days, for the elementary school. I knew that it would be a popular program, but I didn't realize how much of a need
You're a
it would be.
babysitting service.
I'm sorry?
You're a babysitting service.
Yeah, for
Seriously.
working families, it's
Yeah,
a
you are.
really essential service. So when you
Yeah.
look at the elementary school and how many early release days they have, a family would, if you don't have additional services to provide, care for your child, you're really using 2 weeks of vacation. And for a lot of people, that's your entire vacation time.
Oh, I get you. Wednesday, I went up and babysitted for my daughter up in
Right.
Dedham, Mass, so I know what you're doing.
So we just, for the months of, March, April, and May, there's 7 early release days in those 3 months alone.
Yep.
We're partnering with, Math Science and, Art Ventures for Kids. We opened registration on February 1st, and by the end of the day, all of the classes were full but one, with a wait list on every.
Yeah, I was wondering, 'cause
every
I saw you send out the stuff, and I was wondering how fast you filled them.
in one day.
Wow.
So that speaks to, how important, that program is. We're gonna hold those classes at Kibbe, in the gym. But I don't know what the, school system is gonna do for the next school year. I don't know if they're gonna continue with the early release days on Wednesdays. I think that was due to COVID. I believe that's when they started doing the early release days.
This is for teacher training and.
Professional development.
Yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with COVID, though, to be honest with you, but you'd have to ask the superintendent, he can tell you for sure.
So we'll see what the new school year brings, but we will continue to work with, Art Ventures and Math Science to provide, after-school program for every early release day if it's possible. And this is in addition to our after-school program, that's held at the elementary school. So this is on top of what we are already offering families, and they both filled. And in addition to, this one program, we received a grant for, outdoor recreation. So we are, right now, I'm working with the Audubon Society of Connecticut, to provide, some outdoor recreation, walking with a naturalist, trying to get people to come out and explore the trails in town. So we're hoping to start that, later this month or in March. So we're looking at Tuesdays and Sundays, for those events.
Yeah, I will hope you can do some plant identification, that was something my dad was big into, so, you know, if you start out in elementary school with science, it's a big winner.
It is,
Yeah.
and for everybody, and we realized, with COVID, and people we couldn't get into a gym anymore, we couldn't, you know, there was no more indoor recreation, so we moved everything outside and showing everybody the trails and
Yep.
getting them outside. There's plenty of activities that we can keep people happy and healthy.
Yep.
It's great for mental health. So those are some of the newer programs that are coming, along with, you know, the recreation department has always been really heavy in sports. And we're trying to open up more arts programs, STEM programming, community events, outdoor recreation. You know, we had the big, holiday festival this year, working with Ann, you know, Cultural Commission, it's great. So with all these new programs that we're adding, and then enhancing our already current, programs that we have, you know, we have been running an adult kickball program, but by enhancing that and turning it more family oriented, we had a food truck there this year. Same thing with flag football, we, contracted with a food truck to have them come out as well. So just making small changes and enhancements to some of these programs, is key, and I think it went over really well this year.
I know heard lots of comments about the cookie decorating.
Oh,
Big
right.
one.
Well, so
We're hoping to bring some samples by the town hall, you know.
So that's another really big one, and we're partnering with them again, to do a Cupcake Wars, sort of. We're calling it Springtime Cupcake Battle.
Nice.
They've also agreed, to come in and do a free, cupcake decorating class for the seniors at the senior center. So Flo is working on scheduling a date for that, and I think that'll be great, at the senior center as well. And they're doing that free of charge, for the senior center.
Very
So,
nice.
yeah.
Very good.
So we are asking for another coordinator, to help with, the programs that we're offering and that we would like to continue to offer.
Do you see a demand for these, extra programs? I'm just curious, what?
Well, if you look at just opening on Tuesday, when opening up these STEM classes, and they filled in a day with a wait list, there's a want and a need, I believe. And we all saw who came out for the holiday festival, and the tree lighting. I expect that is gonna grow considerably next year as word spreads. And from what I hear from residents is they want to see more of that.
Yeah, I'd like to applaud you at really expanding the scope of the recreational services available to more than just children in school or children in general, including older people and general population.
Thank you. And that's our goal, with the merge of, recreation and the senior center from when Chris Boucher was here. That was really the goal, was to merge that into one, where we are creating programs, and events and bringing the community together, not just for youth, it's for the entire town. And it benefits everybody. So, other than that increase, so that is the major increase, that we are looking for, is for a full-time person. We have some other, smaller increases, at the senior center. We offer, we have movies, so we have a motion picture licensing that we have to have. I am also hoping to add a Hulu subscription so that we can stream, different programming for different events for the coming years. I know we've gotten a request specifically from Ann to see different movies and different types of movies, historical movies. So I'm hoping this will help, so that we can add in some, more programs to, bring in new members as well.
So you have to have that license in order to show the movies?
You do, yes you do, yep. You also, if you are, if you're playing music within your center, if you're piping it into the center, you also have to have a licensing for that as well. Yeah.
It's like $200 a year or something.
Yeah, I haven't looked in to see how much that is, because we don't currently do that, but if we do end up doing that, we will have to look into that.
But you get a town-wide license, so don't, make sure that no one else in the town has a license.
So.
It's used for every department, including the schools.
Well, so for the movie license, that is per.
For movies, but for music,
Yes, music, I'm not sure of.
it's a minimal cost, yeah.
And for the movie licensing fee, it's not
$400.
astronomical either, it's $400 a year, but it's something we need to have that. Other than that, some of our program events, I'd like to offer some more programming, at the senior center. So that has bumped up, a little bit. And other than that, everything else has, stayed the same.
Can I ask something?
Certainly.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask something for you?
Go ahead.
Have you thought of asking the seniors what they would like to have?
I have started doing that, Ann. I've spoken with you about some of the things.
I'm talking about, like a survey, just have.
No, we have not sent out a survey yet.
50 and older.
Yep, and that's coming. The survey is coming. We do one, we actually have one in the recreation department. After every program, we send out a survey asking people what they thought about the program, how can we improve. The survey is coming for the senior center, so that we have a better idea of what, the seniors are looking for, what they like, what's happening, and what changes they would like to see. We also need to build on, we're missing a whole age group for the senior center. So that 55 to 70-ish, we're missing that whole age group. And I'd like to build on that.
I just feel that they won't be interested with a one-room senior center.
Agreed. I agree.
If you build it, they will come.
Right. I
Something
know.
more than a one-room, because
I know.
we have exercise in the senior center. We're disturbing whatever's going on in the administrative area. I mean, building one of the little rooms and putting the secretary or curriculum coordinator or coordinator there is not gonna cut it.
So,
we've gotta think to the future.
And Todd and I, so that's part of, one of our goals, for the future is Todd and I, are working on a master plan. We are hopeful that we have a recreation center here someday. That is one of our goals, and having part of the senior center in there. Now, whether we move the senior center, I've heard a lot of different things, that where the senior center is placed is key because of the senior housing that is behind there, and they wouldn't want to see that. So those are all things that Todd and I are talking about and working through. But that is part of our future hope and goal.
We'd like to see a new senior center in or new community center of some kind.
Every town
That's a
around the
long-term
area
goal.
has got these really nice ones, and we're working towards it, and it takes about 5 years before, at least that.
Our senior center is what, about 25 years old?
I'm not sure, I think, is it older?
Yeah, built by the Rotary Club.
So what Ann was just saying was that our senior center, you've all been in there, I think you've all been inside there, and you know the challenges that we face over there.
Oh, yeah.
It is one big open room, and we have 2 of our employees sitting out in the middle of the room. Todd is gonna be presenting next week.
CIP request to move the employees into the office, which is adjacent to the foyer, put a window in like a doctor's office, so when you walk into the senior center, there'll be a shelf there and the seniors can type in their code or whatever.
Good idea.
And also talk with the staff without interrupting what's going on in the big room. We wanna move the staff into their own separate office.
Thank you.
That's a stopgap measure, that's not a.
Maureen, I think one area that the board would be interested in here is an explanation of your recreational fund and
Okay.
how that works and what that is dependent upon with regards to the rest of your budget, how they relate to each other.
Okay, so, right now, on the recreation side, we receive, funding from, the town for salaries only. It only covers Kim's and my salary.
Which is most of the cost, though.
Well, I guess so, but if you look at some of the programs and the expenses that we're covering for, our department, we cover everything through programming fees.
It's sort of the administrative side of being able to produce all of the programs and the opportunities that are available, so they're they're integrally connected.
Yeah.
So everything that we purchase, Bill, whether it's an office supply, doesn't matter what we purchase on the recreation side, it all comes out of our recreation fund, which is supported through our programming fees. That will carry over, it will stay in our recreation fund, if we have an overage, it will stay in our recreation fund.
We can't say though, I mean, I guess, I think it was just it was more a wording thing I had an issue with. I mean, to say we only pay the salaries, I mean, salaries, people are always the most money.
Yes.
I mean, short of buying dump
Yes.
trucks and buildings, people are by far the biggest expense.
Yes, you are covering our salaries, correct. And then, at the end of every year, the town takes out of our revenue, stream, they take back $20,000 out of the revenue that we've generated for that year, and they put it back into the general fund.
Yeah, I might add that I'd like to take more out if your programs are more successful.
Historically, we have taken more out, right?
Seriously.
No, we've never taken more.
Okay, so.
More than 20, good, okay.
I guess as long as I just have the floor, I just wanna clarify something and then we can, about adding bodies. I always hesitate when that's a request, because that's a permanent cost that most likely will not go away. And with that associated benefits, et cetera. So, and I agree with, Selectman Meyer that that's the majority of the cost. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way, I'm thinking as an accountant, and so I expect you all think that I am an accountant. But the way I'm looking at it is, we've had COVID, and we've had a real negative impact on programs, which is evident in the fact that you haven't had any revenue. You don't really know what kind of a bounce back you're gonna have coming at this point. We thought maybe things were getting better, and then this Omicron entered in, and now there's, who knows, there'll probably be another variant between now and summertime.
There already has been.
And there are also negative impacts, I'm sure, in the senior center and the programs there. We combined you both to gain efficiency or leverage off of each other, so that there wouldn't be silos. We've just lost a senior center coordinator. My thought is that why can't we have somebody, I mean, we're now recreation services, so you're a senior, so you're not, so you're whatever. Why can't we just have a team that works on programs per month? So that you hire, maybe it's a higher caliber person, maybe you're paying a little bit more than you paid for what you have currently, who's just resigning, but have that person be tasked with supplementing and helping Kim with the programs, not knowing if we're going to get more. But I would say you could justify it if all of a sudden things start to bounce back and you really had a lot. I mean, you don't have basketball anymore, you said, so you're not really worrying about coordinating that. So my thought is that rather than adding a body, and rather than not being in the silo, senior here and rec there, just to leverage the two into one position. So
And
that's the CFO speaking, so.
And I agree, and thank you for that, because that's exactly my plan, is to, instead of hiring a supervisor for the senior center, what I would like to do is to hire a coordinator, to help. So we need to have a full-time body in the senior center. We have 2 employees over there right now, they're only part-time. Their hours, kind of intertwine, but we need a full-time body in that building. And, you know, there is a lot more programming that we can do at the senior center, or that we could be offering. COVID has been really difficult, for programming over there. I think it's gonna come back, whether there's more strains coming out or not. I'm hoping that we can get back. But one person for the senior center that's covering over there, isn't going to be able to cover the entire, and that's in my opinion, I don't think that, one full-time person is enough for, the entire department. Kim Halligan is our recreation coordinator. Right now, she is tasked with, the main part that she spends her time on is our, before and after school program. So she's managing the staff that we have there, also filling in if they are absent. All of the early release days, our staff over there are teachers and paraprofessionals from the school. So on those early release days, Kim is in that building. Once our before and after school care ends, summer camp starts up. And then the majority of her time is managing our summer camp and our small fry camp. We have wait lists for, our day camp. Our numbers are not falling, they're increasing. The same thing with small fry, we've, enhanced that program, and made it full-time, and that is her main task, is managing those programs. That is a year-round job. That leaves everything else on my plate.
So I guess, Maureen, what I would say, and I don't wanna, so first I'll say, I mean, number one, your energy, your enthusiasm, I mean, you're really giving a great shot in the arm. Like I said before, I've said it many times, we had a great director with Chris. There's a lot of people nervous when Chris left as to what was gonna happen. You've come in, you've kept it going, you've grown, people love it, the community's responded well. A few things, I mean, number one, just philosophically first, recreation's one of the programs from a government model where a fee-for-service model is a good model. You know, and that's the Rec Self-Support Fund. So, you know, kind of the thought is not everybody uses recreation services, you know, but everybody pays taxes. So, you know, to make it more fair and equitable, charge the people who use the services, use that money then to offset the costs. You know, so like the before and after school program, it doesn't look like we cover our costs based on what you're saying, because the town pays Kim's salary, she's spending her entire time over there, and we're not replacing her salary and benefits. You know, so I mean, I think we need to kind of look at it from that lens, as far as we're losing money there. You know, and then, you know, if we add another person, that's more burden on the taxpayer. You know, so I think it's, you know, it may be too early to add someone. My other question would be, you put in 40,000, but does that include benefits and fringe?
No, I don't know what any of the
So I mean, you're talking actually like 70,000.
The only reason that I put in 40,000 is because I don't want, and that's low. The rec coordinator that we have is she's being paid lower than where she should be. And again, like Eric said, with USMA hauling,
well, salaries are going up everywhere, that's an issue.
Right.
And then I see too in the salaries here, you have your salary, Kim's, and then the new one, but I see only a $40,000 increase from 107 to 147. Does that include the $10,000 raise we already authorized?
No, that happened.
So that's another $10,000 into the budget, so I mean, you know, all in, when you throw all that together, I mean, we're talking like a 40% increase to the rec budget.
So, I mean, I actually have this note on my piece of paper, and it says rates with an arrow up, which means I think you need to actually look at the rates being charged for programs to make sure that we're at least covering costs.
So we are covering costs.
And when I came out of the gate,
but total cost though, I mean, that's why I think we need to look at it, total all-in cost.
So Kim Halligan that is not the only job that she has. It's not just bases and summer camp and day camp. It's a lot more than that, but that is the majority of her time spent. All of the costs of our other staff, and all of the expenses that go along with it, is covered through our program fees. So I raised the fees this year because they hadn't been raised in several years. Those costs went up this year. We are increasing again. Summer camp is gonna go up because of the minimum wage increase. We're catching a lot of flack from parents. Daycare is going up, and we are catching a lot of flack for it. But yes, we are covering those costs. Maybe not Kim's fees, but we are providing those services to the town, and the fees that we're charging is covering the other expenses.
And again, what I came out of the gate saying is that I would like to take more, and I didn't mean that as a cruel comment. What I mean is, I do agree with, again, Bill's assessment that your ultimate goal is to try to fund even the director's salary and the coordinator's salary out of that fund. Maybe not totally, but certainly to a point where it's not a drain on the remaining budget, the tax system, so that you know, it is self-funding, so.
I mean, you essentially, what you build, and again, we're not gonna get there in year one, but it's kind of, for you as a vision thing, we've done this with the fire department as well, they're another revenue source. You know, to kind of look at it as a P&L, you know, profit and loss, and to put some of the all-in costs, including fringe and things like that, just to see where you're at. You know, and then, again, there's an expectation, we are gonna subsidize some of it, but maybe 10% of your time gets charged to the day camp, like Mike's saying. You know, and things like that, 70% of Kim's time. You know, and then see where we are. If we're losing a lot of money there, I mean, it's gonna be a decision that we have to make. Maybe that's a essential service we wanna provide and we wanna subsidize. You know, or we need to raise the costs and charge the fees, but, you know, we get a lot of flack as the board and the Board of Finance,
Oh, I
you know, for raising taxes too much, and people will say, well, I don't use those services. You know, so we always try to balance it, but I don't want it to overshadow the good work that you're doing, because I think you're doing some great things. I think there's a lot of promise. I think IAPO, I think the community festivals and things, I mean, there's a lot of promise there. So.
And she is trying to broaden the scope of her services to apply to greater percentages of the population. So
I
that's,
understand the way it looks like we would only have 2 part-time people in our senior center.
No, we're hiring another full-time person to replace Jillian, but that's definitely happening. But I'm also looking for another full-time person over at Kibbe. That was what I was asking for.
So, and I think the other thing that we look at too as the board, kind of going forward, it's not limited to rec, it's across the town. So it's sharing services between the Board of Education and the town to save taxpayers money. So Todd does it, you know, with facilities, with maintenance, things like that. You know, we look at like Allison Maynard and social services and youth services. You know, where are there synergies between what Maureen's doing and Allison? You know, and can they help each other out? I mean, you know, admin support, things like that. I mean, you know, so looking at the senior center, Kibbe, recreation, you know, not as all islands, but together.
The perception though, Bill, is that we're always thought of as last.
No, that's not at all.
So that's what, when we get people taken away like that, and then we don't know where we're going, all of a sudden we were just so shocked about Jillian's leaving.
Yeah.
That I don't understand, but I see in a way what you're trying to do, but it just seems like the services for us are going away.
We need someone to focus, you know, someone whose focus is primarily on seniors. You know, we need that in town. You know, so we can't have someone that spends 10% of their time on seniors.
Well,
that's not acceptable. Well, I don't think that's the proposal. I think right now we're kind of brainstorming some ideas as to where there's value. But, I mean, you may see something where, you know, Kim is spending time there, or other people. But I think we do need someone as a supervisor that's dedicated to seniors, that's leading them.
Well,
but that may not be 100% of it. That may be 85% of their duties. You know, and then you look, you know, can you supplement them more part-time? You know, I mean, what do we do? I mean,
I just think the perception in this town is you don't offer enough for seniors, and that's why they're not showing up for the movies that we offer, for whatever, the exercise. Jillian did so much for exercise. I was on every program, because before, I was at Enfield, Senior Center, because they were offering more. But still, I mean, it just seems like we're thought of the last year.
No,
and more would come if we had more services, or even our own building, or share it with other departments. I don't know, we just can't be ignored.
Well, we have an aging population, and Summers is definitely one of the towns that has and we know the census trends are going towards more seniors, so I think it's important that we're prepared for that.
yeah, we need to build a stronger senior program. We need to build a stronger senior program, not a weaker one.
And that's my goal, Ann. That is my goal. That is what I'm hoping to do.
Activities, you won't get the older population to come at night.
And that's okay. We're trying to reach everybody.
I understand.
We're trying to build the programs that happen in the morning and the afternoon, but then add on to that as well into the evening to reach some of those other populations.
I agree, but you can't do it with a one-room senior center.
That's another issue.
It's definitely a challenge, but again, we are working on towards that.
Yeah.
No,
that's okay.
Maureen, even though I'm in the minority, I support your, call there for a new, recreational coordinator.
Thank you.
And I think it's, long overdue.
Good job. Thank you.
I'm not sure you're in the minority. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Lynn.
Next on the docket, we have, Land Use Department. Ms. Jen Roy.
The hot seat. How are you?
Not as sharp as I was 12 hours ago.
That's the whole idea, we wanna wear you out. when you're
Yeah.
sitting there, and then you're, easier to deal with.
Getting OT, huh? OT, overtime?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay,
I'm just a body here, I don't really know what I'm talking about.
Take the mask down, I can't hear you.
That's okay. I'm just a representative of the department.
so land use is an area that, you know, this board has had a lot of interest in and continues to be concerned about its future and the fact that we're trying to build a stronger organization, that really supports itself and, works together, presenting services the town needs in this arena. So maybe you could just hit the highlights of your, budget. And,
Okay, well, I'll take this down so you can hear me.
that's fine.
Brian and I worked on the budget, as this is not really something I have experience with to this extent. I did a little in the past, but not like this. What we tried to do was, the biggest change was the salaries. We tried to incorporate back for some sort of land use director, because we've been without a director for about 18 months.
Yeah.
So when you look at the spread here from 2020 to proposed, there's a significant increase, but that's because somehow when Jeff retired, his salary or position dropped off our budget.
Correct.
And then we just added for, a land use technician, which is Matthew, and there's a big difference in their salaries, but, so that's one major change. We tried to reduce legal services down to more of what we've been spending, tried to combine the dues and seminars, so I guess that's kind of the major changes that we did.
And I think you've got in here, building, regular salaries, so that's the
The
building
official.
inspector, is that right?
Right, correct. We basically tried to keep that the same, depending on our future building official needs, or
Mhm.
what we're able to get. We kept it as a part-time 28-hour-a-week position,
Mhm.
and we researched some local towns of what they pay building official and assistant building officials. So this is kind of a middle-of-the-road salary range for 28 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's 28 hours, no benefits?
Right.
No benefits, cause they're under 30.
It's actually, as you can see, 7.27% less than
Yep.
prior year.
Now, is this consistent with what we've discussed with Stafford and what we think we're gonna be able to?
So what Jen and I talked about, so we're not sure if 28 hours is
Number.
Yeah.
what it should
They'll
be.
go
It
the
might
number.
be less.
It might be too many hours.
Right.
Yeah, the 5 to 8 that we're getting right now isn't enough.
Right.
There's a happy number in there somewhere in the middle.
Well, we're not getting 5 to 8 hours from Stafford.
No, not that.
We're
I
getting
don't
about
know.
4. We're
Okay.
probably getting about 4 or 5 a week.
Right, so we're getting 5 hours a week, let's say, and it's clearly not enough.
That's all we're
28
getting
might-
right now?
Yeah,
What's that?
Well, it's just on a mutual aid, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
it's
Brian, it's
on
on
a
a
mutual
mutual aid, basis right now.
Right.
So we haven't ironed out any possibility of a shared building official on a more permanent basis, and what that would look like and what Stafford's able to do. So when Brian and I were going through the budget, we figured, well, if we put in, leave a building official pay,
Yeah.
Cause we're gonna have to pay Stafford County.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Right.
definitely.
or maybe we can
Or
find a
we-
part-time building official out there. Maybe
And
that can be
it's
done.
an interesting topic of discussion, because, like I said, 28 might be too much. I've
Right.
seen what Glenn can do in 5 hours in a week.
Right,
If I had him 28 hours a week, he'd probably be sitting around twiddling his thumbs. But at the same sense, in 5 hours a week, we need a little bit more. So the happy median somewhere in there, that's for you guys to determine, not.
Well, I did ask Glenn when he was here the last time to kinda, feel it out and determine, back with something, what he feels that,
What we
Summers
need,
is gonna
yeah.
need, 'cause he's worked here before in the past
Mhm.
and has, worked when John Collins was out, so
Right.
I've asked him to do that at least too, to help us
So what did he
out.
come back with?
I haven't spoken to him because I just haven't seen him.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna,
This was just last week, sir, so.
I don't think that Glenn is gonna be able to give us a valid number of hours in the next several weeks, because we're still
Digging out from John.
digging out from John being out for a
Yeah,
couple of
yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
I can attest to the fact that when John was out a few years ago and we used Glenn Setzler as, a temporary for about 6 weeks, he was able to sufficiently handle the task in about half a day. So 4 days a week, that's 4 hours.
16 hours.
Correct. So depending, whether it's working hand in hand with Stafford or hiring a part-time building official, from what I've seen over those 7 years here in Summers, you would need at least 16 hours. I think 16 to 20 would be
Mhm.
a good number.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with you. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess my question is though, I mean, I think there's a pretty strong correlation between the amount of building official work and the amount of work we have for public health. And, I mean, how many hours a week of sanitarian work do we have? And I guess that's my question. I mean, I know we have a full-time person, but I mean, I would have a real hard time believing that we have 16 hours a week of building official work and we have 35 hours a week of health inspector work.
Well, I can't speak to what the health inspector does every day, all day. I think some of the building official work is, we take in building permit applications, and I don't know if this is the forum to discuss it.
Yeah, well, we have
Do you wanna-
the land use tech that processes a lot of stuff.
That's right,
Full-time.
correct. And then he'll circulate it to everyone who's got to sign off.
Yeah, also takes in health applications, takes in everything.
No, well, he'll take in at the counter, if you're gonna get a new septic system, so Skips comes,
Yeah.
he'll take in the money, and that's all he does with it, and then he gives it to the sanitarian. He'll take in a building permit to install a pool, and he'll, key it in, and then he'll coordinate, like, he'll give it to me to look at it, the sanitarian to look at it. So there's different things that, so the land use technician and the building official are compared to what the sanitarian does. The sanitarian is kind of a separate department, but part of land use.
Mhm.
We used to have, years ago when I first started, the fire marshal used to kind of fall under the umbrella of, land use.
I remember that.
It's the same as, in Vernon, they're all in the same building, they're the land use people, for sign-offs and different things, but yet the fire marshal was his own person, and he took his own permits and did his own inspections. The sanitarian's got to inspect all of the restaurants and food service,
Salons.
Reisers, salons.
Septic.
So there's other things that I don't really know.
Yeah, but I've seen the
Steve
numbers, I mean, they're not that many, so I mean, I guess that's the question, I mean, that's why.
But when I say 16 hours, I'm being,
I agree, I think
conservative. I'm
16
saying
hours
if that's
is
all
about
we
right.
can get, we
16 to
can work in
20.
it. I don't really know, because we haven't had any consistent building
I mean, we're not a big town, I mean, I think 16 to 20 is probably,
in
Yeah.
general.
I've gotta sit down with, Sal Titus, the, first selectman at Stafford, and try to determine what we can get from Stafford, what's
Yeah.
possible,
Mhm.
and then
That's a good idea.
take it from there. I expect to do that in the next 2 weeks.
Well, that's good.
but no, Jen, I don't mistake that I'm peppering, I don't expect you to have all the answers, but I think
I
where
can
I'm
only tell
going-
from where I sit in the office
Yeah.
and what, the different paperwork and things that we
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
sign
yeah.
off on. I can't speak to a sanitarian or a building official. I frankly can't even speak necessarily to a land use technician. I can't speak to Matthew's position for the entire day of what he does,
Yeah.
because he does some stormwater, mapping work on the GIS, so.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that we need a manager in the land use department who should also be the lead engineer.
Well, that's why I
Right.
think that, for me, as far as funding a new position, as far as, that's the number one priority for the town.
Yeah.
Oh, I
You know,
agree.
Is and it's expensive, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, 'cause
Well-
this doesn't even include benefits, I mean, it's
Well,
90,000.
again, this was dropped, as I said, 18 months ago, and we
Right.
basically had a hole there.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just tried to manage since, and so
Yeah.
we need to fix it now.
Right.
Well, you put
Cause
a-
then they'll be able to answer
put a
all these
finger on
questions
it,
that I
try to
have,
hold my
as far as
thumb,
what's the
put
right
my
size for
finger
summer.
on
Well, and this is more reasonable when we added, you know, I think this is the director, we calculated it based on someone not nearly as experienced as Jeff Ford was. But
could
so,
read plans. I
But
think
could,
that was the
but
major.
had engineering,
Honestly, today, if you're gonna hire a Jeff Ford, we're talking 120 up to 150.
Yeah, we're not gonna be able to afford another
No.
Jeff Ford, so,
No, we don't need that either.
Right.
we don't need a PE.
No, we don't.
so again, we base this on other information from,
Other towns.
someone who's possibly experienced, and what their pay is, that they have engineering,
Yeah.
Experience.
education and experience.
No, that's a good number, I
Yeah.
think that's a good number. I mean, we have to include benefits too, which,
It's in a different line, I already included it.
in a different line. I mean, I guess my thing would be then too, you know, this is for next year's budget, July 1, I mean, do we wait until July 1? You know, do we post this job in March, and do we hire them in May, and then do an appropriation transfer just to get through 2 months? I mean, I'm concerned that no one's steering the ship right now, and I mean, the first selectman shouldn't have to run the day-to-day operation of the land use department.
It's been 18 months.
Well, I know, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying that I mean, things, now that we have a building official, we have a
Yeah,
brand new sanitarian.
it's been a juggling act, I mean,
Yeah, I think that's fair, here's a good question, could that happen? Could we go out and find someone
Could,
to
you would
fill
have
it?
to, I mean, to Bill's point, I would ask for the appropriation first before we post the job and get ready to hire
We'll
somebody.
get the Board of Finance on board, you know, we'll have a planned start date, say of May 1st.
I look at the well, and the well is starting to run dry with appropriations. You know, last year, we cut, a total like $400,000 or $500,000 out of the budget, and already this year, we've appropriated $150,000 of it back.
Yeah.
You know, the idea wasn't to cut and then just add it back in during the year.
So you have to go to the Board of Finance and seek an appropriation
And it would have to go to a town, well, depending on the amount,
So
with it,
20,000 to
yeah, with a couple of months, you're talking 2-3 months.
That's only though from the general fund, we could do an internal transfer inside the budget, it's only if we have to go back out to the general
I
fund.
don't think we have it.
That's what Brian's saying, he doesn't think we have it.
We have some options there, we have some options.
I look at that thing every day, Bill, and
Oh, I know,
I don't see it.
they may be tough options, but we have some options. But I just see
Well, I respectfully disagree with the urgency of, only from a day-to-day operation, so please don't mistake what I'm saying, I don't mean any disrespect by this, about the urgency. I think we, should iron out our building official situation first, because the 4 to 5 hours a week that we're getting, like, is not, it's, you know, it's surrounding,
enough.
Glenn's doing the best he can, and he's
Yeah.
probably, he's putting in, he might put in 5 hours on Tuesday and Thursday, but he's gonna do 2 inspections tomorrow for us, on a Friday. Stafford's closed on Friday like
Yeah.
Summers, so he's doing others, so I'm just,
But John, what I would say is, we're not gonna do one thing at a time. You know, we have the capacity to do several simultaneous
Yeah.
things.
that's great,
So
then
we
fine.
can get the building official going at the same
Sure.
time as we're moving forward on this.
Oh,
You know, I
sure.
wanna, I
Yeah.
don't wanna wait, because the regulatory nature of this is gonna start to affect, you know, the economy, because people can't get their houses built, people can't, you know, there's health and safety involved with this, I mean,
With the director,
yeah, I mean, I hear this from every single person in town.
I think
Every single town employee, everyone I talk to says there's a problem in land use and needs leadership.
well, I kind of respectfully disagree with that too. I think we need a director, because I'm kind of like the last man standing here, who's been here for 7
Yeah.
years, now everyone's retired and fired.
I think that's what he means.
Yeah, I think we run the risk
But I
of-
don't think that's why people can't get a house built. I don't understand a complaint
Well,
that
we
they
only
can't get a
have
house
4
built.
hours a week of building official time available, and you need to
But
get your house
I mean, that
inspected.
just happened in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, we do our best, like, this town turns around,
Yeah,
prior to this-
I'll be speaking to, Sal Titus the next 2 weeks
yeah,
and work out.
but our turnaround time for a building permit is really fast. And I say that with complete experience from working in another
So in other
town.
words, are they being held up now?
Just now in the last couple of weeks, not in the last 18 months. So you've had Jeff retired during COVID, so that could be a delay. I totally agree with you that we need a director.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't argue that point at all. I guess I'm just
Okay, I think we got
feeling a little
two,
defensive that
we got two different
issue
priorities
permits.
here, and we can go
I
for
don't-
both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
All right.
that would be the thing to do, is
Yeah.
do both of them.
Just get moving on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I agree, thank you.
Both saying the same thing.
Anything else with regards to any other questions for Jen on the land use budget?
No, but thank you for spending the time doing that, and
Yeah,
Brian,
thanks.
thanks you for helping.
Good job.
I see you also got down here, land services, that's Joanna Shapiro, is that her last name?
Oh, wetlands agent.
16,500 is in the budget. She comes in 2 days a week, is that right?
Correct.
And she works for North Central Conservation.
Correct.
Great, okay. So she's another part of the land use department, just to make sure we understand that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
We're getting to the end.
Copy of the agenda.
What, to drive home? Me too.
Okay.
It looks pretty foggy, actually.
All right, so now we're down to approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes of our meeting on January 27th, 2022, regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I've reviewed these minutes and edited them to the extent I think they needed to be edited to make corrections. So I have a motion to approve the minutes of January 27th.
Make the motion to approve them.
Second.
Any questions?
Yeah, I would just say for the future, we should record the votes as far as what, Mr. Meyer voted in favor, Mr. Key voted, for everything, because it just says motion passed.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know that necessarily, is that 2-1, is that?
Oh, I do that in my notes, so I can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
always
if you
go
want to say
3-0.
motion passed unanimously, then I guess that's,
So 3-0, like.
or just say motion passed unanimously.
Oh, okay.
And then if it's split, whatever, Mr. Keeney, Mr. Meyer voted yay, Mr. Smith voted
That's easy
nay,
to do.
something like that, just to show exactly who voted how,
I can do that.
so.
No
Okay, other than that, they're
problem.
good, thank you.
You got it.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes from January 27th, say aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved.
I mean, I'm thinking 100 years from now, when we're looking
We have,
back and they're saying, Bill who?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Meeting's adjourned.
8:28. Oh.